Palm of Deborah. Previously we learned about the backsliding people of Israel. Despite all God had done for them, they continued to give themselves to other idols. As a result, they were overtaken and made slaves by neighboring kingdoms. But God sent the mighty judges, Othniel and Ehud. Both were crafty and brave men, chosen by God to save the Israelites from their own disobedience and captivity. Now we will learn about the deliverance of Israel once again. God summons the leadership of Deborah and Barak to free the people from the oppression of the Canaanites, inspired by the Book of Judges. The pursuit of darkness continued. Israel was tempted by every god of the land. They looked for any excuse to satisfy their selfish desires in pursuit of simple comforts. As before, God removed his hand of blessing and allowed them to fill their hearts with sin. God would not beg for their love, but he would not leave them either. Soon after Ehud died, Jabin, king of Canaan, and his general Sisera attacked Israel with 900 chariots of iron. Like a black wave, the Canaanite army crashed upon Israel. They consumed them. Drowning in oppression, sin, and helplessness, the children of Israel cried out to God again. Judging over Israel at that time was Deborah. She was a strong and wise woman, a prophetess devoted to God. People would often seek Deborah's wisdom and come to her with disputes. Her pragmatism, discernment, and sensitivity to God's Spirit made her a leader worth following. When the oppressive hand of Jabin pressed upon the throat of Israel, Deborah sent for Barak, a commander of Israel's army. Barak came at once and stood at attention before Deborah. She spoke to him, saying, "The Lord has commanded you to take 10,000 soldiers and go against Sisera." Barak gulped, slightly scared at the thought of facing 900 iron chariots and even more foot soldiers. He looked at Deborah and said, "I will go, but only if you go with me." Deborah smiled and nodded, saying, "Of course I will go with you. But know this, there will be no glory for you if you are victorious, for the Lord is giving Sisera into the hand of a woman." Then Deborah arose and rode like the wind with Barak to the valley of Kadesh. 10,000 men followed them, and they rode with purpose to war. The two armies met for battle. The vast numbers of Israel looked thin compared to the bulk of Sisera's chariots. Deborah could sense the weakness in her men. She rode among them, clanging her sword against theirs. She yelled at the top of her lungs, saying, "Arise! God has already given them into our hands. Does he not go before you?" The soldiers raised their swords and spears and followed Deborah and Barak into battle. The army of Israel overpowered the chariots. One by one, iron fell into the dust. Barak fought among the men, his sword gliding through flesh and bone. Spears flew through the air, hitting the hearts of the chariot drivers. Horses and men fell to the ground, and Sisera could already sense he had lost the battle. Sisera leapt off his chariot and ran away on foot, looking back to make sure none of his men witnessed his cowardice. They ran further and further away from the camp, and the screams of men were replaced by silence. None were left alive. Sisera had escaped up towards the tent of one of his allies, Heber. There Sisera met with Heber's wife, Jael. He ordered Jael to bring him food and something to drink, and then keep watch while he slept. Jael brought Sisera milk in a blanket. "Do not be afraid," she whispered. Stroking his hair, she hushed him to sleep. She brushed his hair until Sisera fell into a deep slumber. She covered him with a blanket. Jael went to the entrance of the tent and picked up a tent peg and hammer. She turned toward Sisera and slowly approached him. She stroked his hair some more, and then in one decisive swoop, hammered the tent peg into Sisera's skull. The peg was driven straight through his temple and touched the dirt. Meanwhile, Barak was in hot pursuit of Sisera and had followed him to Jael's tent. Jael rushed out of the tent and stopped him, saying, "Come quick, I will show you where he is." Barak's eyes widened as he saw Sisera's dead body bolted to the floor by his head. It was true. God did grant victory over Sisera to a woman, but it was not Deborah, but Jael. A pool of blood surrounded his skull. Back on the battlefield, a pool of blood surrounded the Canaanite army.